Welcome, merry listeners, to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we unwrap the enchanting world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian dramas.
As we dive into these cinematic journeys, we're not just recapping, we're embarking on a therapeutic adventure.
Think of it as our cinematic self-care session.
And no, we're not just casual spectators. We're here to dissect the undercurrent messages, unravel the complexities, and even spot those not-so-magical moments of unhealthy behaviors.
And through it all, we'll be infusing our own unique perspectives and life experiences along the way.
Get ready to snuggle up as we explore the cheer, the charm, and the occasional cheesy wonder of these festive films. Welcome back to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini. I'm Lala, a non-French-speaking French-Canadian.
And I'm Nini, a first-generation American-born Chinese that speaks broken Chinglish, Taiwanese. Yeah, it only matters on the regular Hallmark episodes where we review and you hear words like "aya" and "egu" and "omo." That's where it matters.
Well, if you're new here to the Breaking Script podcast, we're sister-in-laws on a mission to spread joy and glimmers while offering ways to open your windows of tolerance through watching Hallmark movies and The Way Home.
We have 4 unique segments that give you a guide to review, or what we like to call break script, with the healthy and unhealthy romantic and family relationships, as well as the unhealthy and healthy behaviors in these movies. So we always start with a movie summary or episode recap that has been likened by fans to an audio spa. So even if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie or you don't have access to the show, you can still have an experience as if you did. That way you can follow along our boba ratings and our 4 unique segments of breaking script that magically turn your Hallmark movie or The Way Home watching into a more meaningful self-care session. And happy last day of Loveuary. You
Honestly,
didn't even participate in Loveuary, did you?
No,
The Way
I didn't.
Home?
I didn't. But I cannot believe we're at the end of February. Like,
It's not
I don't know
okay.
about you, but like this has been the easiest winter I have ever experienced. But my brother-in-law says it's because we're in an El Nino year or something. Anyways, it is
El
so,
Nino. That's the thing up here. El Nino is like,
unless I'm saying it wrong.
I
There
don't
is
know what that
there
means.
is a very high chance that that is
Uh-huh.
not what he said to me, and that is just something in my head. But basically, he said something about warm winds that
Okay.
affect
Yeah.
the overall weather. Anyways,
Yeah.
it
Does
is
it hit election year or something? Like what's happening?
I don't know, but
I need to go
there's no
back.
snow. We're in February and there is no snow here. It is warm. I'm going to go on a walk today if it's not raining. It's been sunny. Like it really, I've never felt like spring in February, except when I lived in Kansas City though. Cause
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Well, we have
Yeah.
like, if psychs you out, it's like, hey, it's spring. Psych. That's what happened today. It is in the 40s today. Yesterday we were wearing shorts. It was like near 80s.
Yeah.
So we call it the bipolar weather. And it
Well, we had a thunder and lightning storm yesterday.
Wait,
which
what?
I have never, at least for my memory, I have never experienced a thunder and lightning storm in February.
Really?
Hailing, like again, it felt like Kansas City.
Because it doesn't rain in February. Right. Because
No, it
usually you have like
snows.
snow on the ground, like from what is it,
Till
October,
probably
November?
April.
Which is like I cannot.
I know.
I cannot. So happy Leap Day.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
publishing this. Like that comes every
Wow.
4 years. So does El Nino? I don't know. Anyway, we love you, Wary you. We were actually discussing it last week, and I think I squirreled away into other topics. But Lala and I wanted to express our thanks for our little group of listeners. I love it because we publish at like 3 a.m. in the morning. For those of you who like numbers, I publish at 3:33 a.m. every time. And before I wake up, there's like a group of you that consistently listen. Like there's plays before I wake up. And I'm like, what part of the world are you in? But anyways, we want to thank you because consistently breaking script with you has been one of the biggest glimmers of our lives in these last few months. There have been some dark months.
Yeah.
The last few months that we did not see coming when we first started this podcast. But I am so thankful because just consistently seeing Lala and
Mhm.
making sure that in midst of really hard stuff, like, I'm stopping to watch a Hallmark movie, like, to take a breath in
Yeah.
something that's, like, more low key, has been a huge glimmer, and the fact that we're, like, in midst of recovery, like, consistently putting something out,
Yeah.
I just love it so much. So
Me
thank you
too.
guys for listening to give us
Thank
even more
you.
meaning.
Yeah.
We love you guys. Anyway, all right, shall we get into this today?
Let's do it.
This is the part of the Breaking Script podcast where you get to grab your preferred cup of cheer and cozy up for an audio spa type recap of The Way Home. In this episode, Founders Day in Port Haven brings up memories for Dell, Alice, and Elliot. Kat finds herself caught between two worlds in her search for answers. This is Season 2, Episode 5, Long Time Gone. In 1814, Susanna Augustine concocts a medicine by using herbs as Kat watches close by in the basement of the Landry house. They head upstairs and join Elijah just as Cyrus Goodwin rides up on horseback. Susanna tells Kat to go to the pantry and stay there. Cyrus inquires how they're doing with harvesting the crops without Jacob and asks for them to send word when Jacob's home. Susanna walks Kat back to the woods to get to the pond. In 2002, young Elliot shows Alice his new cell phone as he walks her back to the pond. He tells Alice that his summer job house-sitting at Lingermore paid great, which Alice clocks as Evelyn Goodwin's estate. Elliot tells Alice that summer of 2002 has been rough and he just wants to get through the Founders Day festival for which he and Kat always used to decorate the gazebo. In 1814, Kat arrives at the pond to see Thomas Coyle bathing. He knows that she is Jacob's long-lost sister and says that Jacob is a friend of his. Kat accuses him of playing both sides of the coin and calls him a liar and a thief, but Thomas tells Kat not to make assumptions about people she doesn't know, as she might disappear. He says he's working on getting Jacob back. Paintbrushes fall out of Thomas's bag, which Kat notices. He moves to leave and says to Kat, "The pond is yours, my Catherine." That happened. In Port Haven, town in present day, Rita tells Dell to have some fun before post-summer responsibilities. They talk about the town's 200th Founders Day. I'm so surprised they didn't call it the Bicentennial. Anyways, an annual town tradition where they pay tribute to Port Haven's founding in the 1800s. Rita pulls out her big Founders Day ribbon pin that says, "Ask me about my family." They see Sam Bishop talking to a woman, and Rita comments to Dell that Sam is desperately making his way through all the women in town. Such a player. At the point, Alice offers herself as a volunteer to Monica to decorate the gazebo for Founders Day. Elliot enters, and Monica asks if he's ready for the festival's Augustine spotlight. She gives him his coffee and one of the pins, which he is less than enthused about receiving. At the Herald, Kat's intern Casey tells her that they're behind on booking interviews for the Founders Day edition. With summer ending, Casey reminds Kat that it is their last week together. Casey also tells Kat that they're upset because Rita asked them to present Goodwin's family check for the new library at the festival, but Casey's upset as they don't know much about their family. At Elliot's house, he holds the pin Monica gave him and has a flashback to the 2000s with his dad, Victor. Victor angrily tells young Elliot that Founders Day is the one that they get respect on the Augustine name. In present day, in Alice's room, Kat tells Alice that someone in 1814 told her that if you mess with the wrong people, they can make you disappear. She worries that this is what happened to Jacob, and Kat also asks Alice to tell her if she sees anything unsettling in her trips back to the 2000s. Elliot calls upstairs that dinner is ready in the Landry kitchen, and Alice reveals she invited him. Alice, Kat, Dell, and Elliot discuss Founders Day over dinner, and Alice tells the group that Monica roped her into volunteering to decorate. Kat reminisces how she and Elliot used to decorate when they were teenagers. On the porch after dinner, Kat asks Elliot why he didn't tell her that Alice was there in the past during that whole mess. Elliot says that the pond is taking Alice there for a reason and they can't avoid it. Elliot tells Kat that he found the ship manifest from the past, but Jacob wasn't listed on any. Kat tells Elliot to check for the name Thomas Coyle instead. In Dell's bedroom in present day, she has a flashback to Colton putting the pin on her. The two reminisce about their first Port Haven Founders Day. She tells Colton she hated her first one and that she felt like a total imposter then. Colton tells her that she's a Landry all on her own and will always be. At the Herald, Casey tells Kat that they found execution records that detail how people were shot in town for treason. They also researched Cyrus Goodwin and learned that he was close with the British War of 1812, so much so that he built ships for the Navy and sent them to Canada. Kat realizes this is what Jacob was involved in. Casey relays that in return, the British gave Cyrus a letter of marque, which allowed him to steal and pillage anything. All in the name of war. Casey is upset that this is what their family is built upon, but Kat reminds them that they don't have to let their past define their future. Casey thanks Kat for the summer at the paper, and they take a picture together. At the point, while Alice is working, she talks with Noah from school as she gets a text from her mom. Alice told Kat that Elliot is in for volunteering with the gazebo and that he specifically asked if Kat could help. Kat agrees because she believes Elliot asked for her to, and Alice tells Monica the news. Monica sees what Alice is up to and tells her she's all for it. Elliot scours his dad's ship manifest he has from the 1800s. As he does, he has a flashback of being with his dad's in the 2000s when Victor found Samuel Augustine in the history records. Victor tells young Elliot that their founding fathers came over with the rest of them and that the Augustines are just as good as the Landrys and the Goodwins. Victor appears to write something down in the manifest telling young Elliot, "You just wait, it's our turn now." When Elliot comes out of the memory and returns to present day, he finds Thomas's name on the ship manifest. At the gazebo at night, Kat thanks Elliot for volunteering to help, and Elliot tells her that Alice said that Kat needed help. They both realize they were set up by Alice. Elliot fixes the lights, and the two of them share a moment as the band arrives for sound check. They reminisce. Alice goes to the Wally's food truck in town to see Noah as he's been working double shifts. He brings her fish and chips, and she learns that he works there for his grandpa to help, not because he wants to be a chef. He didn't get the swimming scholarship for college he thought he would, so he's just figuring things out day by day. At the point, Monica gets Del a piece of pie as Sam enters with Rita. Sam asks if Del wants to join them, which Rita discourages. Monica notices Del's awkwardness as she asks Monica for her pie to go. At the gazebo setup, the band plays a slow song and Elliot asks Kat to dance. As they dance, Kat reveals to Elliot that she told Susanna about her time travel. Elliot accuses Kat of using another one of his family members and tells her that bringing Susanna into this will ruin her life. Kat tells Elliot to stop taking his family's insecurities out on her, and before storming off upset, Elliot tells Kat that he did find a Thomas Coyle on the ship manifest. The ship was called the Belladonna, and it came into port on the first day of harvest in 1814. In Kat's bedroom, Alice finds Kat looking at the ship manifest. Kat tells Alice that this means Jacob is coming home, but she can't go back to 1814 yet as Del wants them at Founder's Day, and she wants to support Elliot. Kat asks Alice why she set her up with Elliot, and Alice tells her mom that she really wants her own purpose. She feels that Kat has purpose in finding Jacob in the 1800s, and Alice feels confused about why the pond is sending her to 2002. Alice thought it was trying to reveal that she should try to get Kat and Elliot back together. In present day, as Del gets ready for Founder's Day, Colton appears in her imagination. Del says that she feels like an imposter again, like she's letting Colton down, and that he wouldn't be proud of her. She doesn't feel like she can call herself a Landry when her Landry is gone, but Colton says he's proud of her every day. The three Landry women attend the festival together. Alice tells Kat that it's okay if she chooses to go to 1814 over this event. Rita takes the stage and welcomes Casey, who has the Goodwin family check in tow. Kat briefly sees someone from behind that looks like Susanna, but when she turns around, she isn't. Kat then sees a man who appears to be Thomas Coyle, but he disappears as Elliot walks in front of him. Elliot sees Kat and assumes she'd be at the pond already, and with that, she heads to the pond. And that was a little spat, again, between Elliot and Kat. Back in 1814, Kat finds Thomas and asks him why Jacob would use his name on the ship. Thomas says that Jacob couldn't afford the passage home, so he paid for it under his name. Thomas tells Kat that it's the first day of harvest, and Kat realizes this means Jacob is coming home today. In present day at the festival, Rita calls Elliot up to the stage to give a speech. Elliot is flustered because he sees young Elliot in the crowd as he has a flashback to his dad interrupting Colton on stage at this event in the 2000s. Victor makes a scene claiming that the Goodwins live up in their mansion, the Landrys have their acres of land, and the Augustines have been left to suffer. Elliot comes out of his flashback to present day on stage and gives a speech about how the Augustines have always been observers. He says that by writing the story, they record what matters, and that being an Augustine is both a responsibility and an honor. Back in 1814, Kat finds Elijah, Susanna, and others harvesting crops in the fields and joins them. At the point, in present day, Dell signs copies of the book The Founding of Port Haven by Samuel Augustine. Sam Bishop walks in and asks Dell if she's all right. She tells him she's tired of all this, of playing a role. He tells her to stop, to take the button off, and just leave. That's not the button of her clothes. It's a button that says, "Ask me about my family," that all the founding families of Port Haven has on for Founders Day. She claims that she doesn't have the luxury to do whatever she wants and that it isn't easy for her, but he convinces her that even though it isn't easy, she can do it, and they leave together. In 2002, Alice goes to Elliot's house and runs into his dad, Vic. As young Elliot comes outside to join them, Vic makes an unsavory comment, about Elliot seemingly scoring Alice. As Alice and Elliot leave, he asks her not to tell Kat about how bad his dad is, as he doesn't want Kat's pity. Alice promises to keep his secret. In 1814, as Kat works in the fields harvesting crops, she finds clothing buried, including young Jacob's red shoe. A child announces that there is a boat in the harbor, and everyone drops what they're doing to run to shore. In present day, Sam and Dell sit together at the cove. Dell asks Sam if he brings all his girls here. He tells her that he dates around because he needs to dip a toe in the water before he swims. Okay, Sam then takes off his clothes and runs into the water, beckoning Dell to join him. And she relents, takes off her clothes, and runs in to join him. Yeah, that happened. Back in 1814, Kat, Elijah, Susanna, and others see a boat coming into shore from the beach. Thomas Coyle runs out of the woods and waits on shore too. He's got his hand on his pistol. A man turns around on the boat, whom Kat recognizes as adult Jacob, and she begins to call for him. Officers on horse storm onto the beach, knocking Elijah to the ground and Kat into the water. They arrest Jacob for treason and drag him away, leaving Kat and Elijah. Wouldn't that be interesting though? Once again. They arrest Jacob for treason and drag him away, leaving Kat and Elijah distraught on the beach. And that is the end of episode 5.
And now is the part of our episode where we rate this episode of The Way Home. So, Nini, what did you give this episode?
This is really hard for me. I think after this episode, it was like a 8, 7. And I went back after this and I was like, so was last week. I had to face reality, and we can talk more about it, but I think it just has to do with the fact that, I don't know. I think Deck the Hallmark's getting into my head. They were expressing their disappointment a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't agree. Like, I was so angry, and I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of agree. The pace has slowed. There's not as much like witty, clever, or clever, unexpected twists yet. So I have, and I think I've learned, I have such high expectations for episode 6 because of what episode 6 was in season 1. And I think I had too high expectations for 4 and 5. So I'm going to lower my expectations. I don't know if that's a good thing, but the fact that I'm doing that means that's why it's an 8.
I'm a 7.5. I feel like a little bit of last week and this week, we're getting into those, and I know you don't like this word, and a lot of people don't like this word, but these filler episodes where it's like an album, okay? Or do they even call them albums anymore?
Yes.
There's the hit songs, the singles that they release, and they tend to be the best ones. And then you have those filler songs, that are good, but they just are almost like they just add another song to the album, but they're not the greatest hits. They're not going to win an award. These are the episodes. But I'm going to start out by saying you were right. We see Jacob. I was convinced we would not see him until either the second last or the last episode. Now, I still think my theory is a little bit true. Like, obviously he's there, but are we going to see him again? Was this just a teaser?
Right.
But we at least saw him. That was probably the best part of the episode.
Really? Okay.
No,
We
meaning
need to
not the best
dive
part.
in.
Yeah, not the best part, but the fact that we saw him, which was something that I was sure was not going to happen.
It's true. It's true. I know. I was surprised. I was like, Lala. Okay. We just need to get into the breakdown. Typically on our Hallmark reviews, breaking script, we call it, yeah. Or no, sorry, back up. Where is my brain this morning? I'm all jumbled up. Um, it's usually what's love got to do with it.
Yeah.
For the way home, we call it Home Sweet Home. This is where we talk about glimmers and what we love, where we break down romantic and family relationships. For the way home, because we often have new characters or further storylines, this is where we talk about further developments with new characters. Um, there's not a whole lot, but I think it's really interesting that they had Alice meet Victor Augustine, Elliot's dad. That,
Right.
like, more of Elliot's backstory, which is interesting, also made me not like this episode as much. And obviously Jacob Landry as an adult. We just talked about that. That's huge. So
Mm-hmm.
what else am I missing? Something else?
I don't think so.
Right. Okay. I just want to say this. And it's kind of disappointing. I have to admit that my only glimmer, true glimmer, the other ones I had to like squeeze and make up kind of. My only glimmer is that I had anticipation and engagement with my teen kids
Mm.
for this show. I really struggled with the glimmers this week in the episode, and then
Mm.
realized I struggled with the glimmers last week too. I kind of had to just make it up because
Mm.
besides maybe some of the flashbacks of Colton and Dell together, and you continue to see their love story,
Yes.
like I have to eat some of my words the way home. You made me have to eat my words, and that makes me sad because I think a couple episodes ago I said I will consistently love the cold opens and the endings. Like they will always be so brilliant.
Mm.
And not that it didn't stay as consistent this
Right.
season. Um, but I realized what started off as glimmers and was like, oh, this is like giving me the feels could quickly turn unhealthy. So like in the cold open for episode 5, Kat and Susanna's growing friendship is basically compared or parallel to Alice's friendship and support of Elliot,
Yeah.
which is cool, right? You have Susanna walking Kat to the pond. They're like arm in arm. And then Elliot is doing the same thing for Alice.
Yeah.
And now Susanna's leaving a backpack with clothes for Kat to change in
Yes.
at the pond with a welcome back note. Like, so like that's a glimmer for me in that it's like, oh, you again, you fit a lot in the cold open. But then that content begins to become disturbing to me. The fact
Oh.
that Alice is the one showing more, I mean, I know this goes into Surprising Detours, but Alice, so this is good on Alice. Let's talk about how she's like maturing and showing empathy like an adult
Mm.
and really caring. And she's saying stuff to her mom like, it's okay to choose 1814 over us today. I don't know.
Mm.
What do you got, Lala?
Okay. This is not the traditional glimmer, but I just have to say it because I think my theory was right about the My Catherine and Catherine maybe falling in love in
I
18.
I
Literally
could
was
hear
like,
you in my
oh,
head. I
as soon as
couldn't
he said
believe
My
it.
Catherine, which he was Mr. Coyle is such an unexpected character for her to like, it's not confirmed.
I
Okay.
know. I can't wait
This
to
could
talk
be
about it.
this could be a red herring, but the
Yeah, yeah.
fact that I might be right was like my biggest glimmer.
I know the fact that they made it a thing. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Lala called it. She totally called
Yeah,
it.
I called it. You guys can go back to last week when I called it a week before. Anyways, I one thing that I loved, and we talked actually about this last week in
Yeah.
preparation for this week, was
Yeah.
Founders Day does have Gilmore Girl vibes, which
Oh
we
my
both
gosh.
love
Did
Gilmore
you read
Girls.
my notes? I can't believe you said it. Okay, go.
It felt very like Stars Hollow-y. So I
Totally.
did have that nostalgic vibe. Um
Yes,
and you're right. I also said that I loved the moments with Colton. Like we're still seeing the relationship and the depth of their relationship. But then I
totally.
was like, is he really there? That's what I'm constantly asking. Is he really there?
Me
Because
too.
but we are constantly having these pictures of people, and I don't know if they're
Right.
real or not. We can get into that
Exactly.
later.
Yes,
And
yes.
then something, um, you've already mentioned this, but it's so interesting that Kat is getting the experience that Alice had in the 90s, but Kat's getting it in 1812. Again, same
Yeah.
thing. The backpack at the pond, the being the one very invested in this
Yes.
story and a part of it. And um last season was a lot about Alice's journey, more
Mhm.
so with the 90s, and then Kat obviously as well. And this one feels
Yeah.
more like Kat's journey, and
Yeah.
Alice's not as strong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
those are the
she's a
things that I
supporting
loved.
character now. I
Yes.
I love it. I literally wrote the same thing because okay, can we just for a minute here talk about
Hmm.
mustard on fries?
Yeah, I'm not into that.
Okay, but do you know what it reminded me of?
Um,
When Jess brought over the food and he had
oh,
Rory and Paris try fries with salt and pepper. It's actually really good. I just had
well,
to pick that up.
yes. I mean, salt and pepper is a much better fry condiment than
But the way
mustard.
that
It's so
he dips it,
sour.
you don't put it, you don't shake it on top. You dip
Oh,
it into salt and pepper. I was like, whoa, that's like a seafood, Cajun seafood boil thing that we do with our shrimp. Anyway,
that's funny.
this is if you don't know what we're talking about, um, Nini is a huge Gilmore Girls fan, and if you go back and listen, we talk about how The Way Home is basically Gilmore Girls 3.0,
Seriously.
because Gilmore Girls, um, through the years, the redo, what do you call it? Reunion, something,
Yeah.
was so traumatic for me that I needed like group therapy afterwards. So, anyways, it continues to be Gilmore Girls 3.0 because of Founders Day. We just needed some Founders Day punch. And does every small town have a gazebo? Like, what is
Mm,
happening? And
good question.
that's my only thing. Like, I think it's really cute that Alice was trying to set up her mom and Elle,
Oh, yeah, that was really sweet.
and that scene in the gazebo, and that
Yeah.
Monica agreed, like knew what she
Yeah.
was trying to do. It
Again, very felt
just
like Gilmore. It very much so felt like a Gilmore Girls thing.
totally Stars Hollow vibes.
Yeah.
And um yeah, like it'll be really interesting if like in the next episode we find out that like Alice gets drunk off of Founders Day Punch or something. That's all I need to seal the deal. But I really love that Alice is like really being there for Elliot, but it makes me really sad that glimmers like for a moment that Alice now knows Elliot better than Kat. So this becomes an yeah, don't go chasing waterfalls moment. I had to say it because Surprising Detours just given doesn't have the same feels. But let's go ahead and can we move into Surprising Detours now?
Yeah.
This is where we talk about surprises, unhealthy behaviors, or coping mechanisms. Um, let's start with the end in mind, shall we? Here
Okay.
before we rapid fire, I'm just gonna rapid fire two.
Okay.
The nearly nude scene and the adult Jacob scene are your biggest surprising detours, right? I call it the nearly nude because Deck the Hallmark has been waiting for it all season long because
Yeah.
apparently before the show even premiered, there were interviews of Dell saying that she was nearly nude. And so they've literally, because they have these
Uh,
segments. If you don't follow Deck the Hallmark, they're hilarious. I'm giving them free publicity here. Their segments are hilarious. They literally play Stephen Curtis Chapman's I'm diving in.
that's a good
And
one.
anyway, so they've been talking about this all season. I'm going to talk about it more. I'm really disturbed. But we saw adult Jacob, but Kat yells his name and he gets arrested for treason. Okay, I feel like I'm
Right.
getting into the way we see it here and wanting to talk like observations and theories, but do you think he got arrested because Kat yelled his name or he would have gotten arrested anyway?
I was unsure because clearly they were in the wings waiting. Like they were hidden. Like, how would it seemed like this was a coup? So I don't know, but I
Hmm.
think that she maybe identifying him was the
Yeah.
reason why they went after him, and maybe they were uncertain. I think the jury is still out on that, but I
Yeah.
definitely think there's a good chance that it was her fault.
Crazy.
But let me ask you this before we move on
Okay.
from the nearly nude. I just have to know, would you ever skinny dip?
Well, thank God she still had her underwear on. I was
Okay,
like,
would
we
you?
got children
Well,
in
I mean,
here.
I guess it's basically swimming suit
Yeah, she
stuff,
was
but
wearing
like
it's
I
like a
would
bikini.
never
But I was
that.
super impressed. And she was so like,
Oh, I literally wrote a note. She was wearing matching bra and panties. Like, when does that ever happen? Okay. So she was
she was
ready.
prepared.
Or she's just a very put together person. So
Something.
something. But like I could never, ever.
Oh
Also, just
no.
I'm terrified of water in the night.
Oh, there's that too.
There's that too.
Yes, there's
So
that too.
I
Yeah.
could not, and I will not, and I'm afraid of dark water. So there we go. Moving on.
Moving on. Do you want a rapid fire?
Yes. Okay. All the things that surprise me slash unhealthy
Yes.
relationships. Mr. Coyle, potential lover, and oh, so I said Mr. Coyle, potential love interest, not lover. We don't know that. Is
Uh-huh.
he the one who paints my Catherine? Okay. Did Jacob and Thomas swap places? I think that is answered, and it's a yes. We finally see Elliot's dad, which definitely has ominous vibes, unhealthy stuff going on there. His father clearly never felt like he's on the same level as the Goodwins and the Landrys, and there's a lot of bitterness there. I have a question really quick.
Yeah.
Are they alluding to Elliot's dad having a drinking problem? Because there was some
Oh.
talk about his dad and issue, but it's like,
What is
I
the
think
issue? Yeah.
Alice said I didn't know how bad it was, or does Kat know? And Elliot says no. And I'm like, are they saying,
What are
is
we
he
talking
drunk?
about?
Yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
lost me. Um, does Mr. Coyle travel to the present, or was a figment of Kat's imagination? Because we're getting that.
Exactly.
Elliot seeing
Totally.
himself, Alice is seeing out, like we're seeing a lot of these, like,
Exactly. What is happening,
what's
people? And
happening?
who is time traveling?
And then obviously Dell swimming half naked. Shocking, shocking. And then Kat finding the burial of Jacob's clothes as the boat arrives. That was a shock. And then Jacob gets arrested. Those are my rapid fire surprises.
Can we talk about though, like, I have to agree with Deck the Hallmark here. How much time has passed from episode 4 to 5? I think that disappointed me some because there just wasn't, it was like the storyline was moving too quickly and there wasn't enough development because
Ah,
so much time had passed in the 1800s and now we're in 2002. Like, there's enough time that has passed. Like, Kat has spent enough time apparently in the 1800s to where she's so familiar
yeah.
with Elijah and Susanna to where they're like bonding over Susanna's herbalist efforts and she's writing in a journal, mirrored writing backwards. We'll talk about that in the way we see it.
Mm.
Um, and hold up a second. Elliot is house sitting for the Lingermore estate for Evelyn while she's vacationing. And he
Mm-hmm.
says, like, summer 2002 is terrible. It's blown. The only good thing was that he was house sitting for Evelyn. He just has to get through Founders Day. Like, the last time we were there was October of 2001.
Whoa.
Like,
Yeah,
we
time is
jumped
moving faster.
almost an entire year.
Hmm.
And how, like, I think what we're missing is like, how often did Alice travel? Like, how much closer did they get? What happened during that time? Like,
Yeah,
it just felt like I miss, like, okay, maybe brilliant writers, maybe they're going to go back and fill that in. I don't know.
maybe.
Thomas Coyle and Jacob were good friends. And who told Thomas Coyle that Kat is Jacob's sister?
He's a
Like,
time
how,
traveler.
like, who, Susanna? Was it who else knows? Like, how, what's
Mm,
happening? And
yeah.
then it's obviously surprising that there's this thing called a letter of marque. And this kind of leads over into like dead ends. I didn't like the fact that Casey is the one who finds the execution records and is the one that researches and finds that Cyrus built ships for the British Navy. Like, what the heck have you been doing, Kat? Like, how is this girl finding this seemingly basic information before you?
Yes.
Like,
Are we I just have to say I still don't understand Casey's involvement. She feels like an extra unnecessary character in all of this.
which is sad because, and that's the other thing, which is like the time going, because like now the whole summer's gone and Casey's time working at the Herald is over. So like, why
why was she there?
what was
I
her
don't
point?
understand.
Like, are we gonna go back? Like, what? Sad. And clearly she has more to do in this show. So, but the fact that because of Casey talking is when Kat realizes that Jacob helped build that ship, and that's the ship that he's delivering is one of Cyrus' ships. And then that's when Casey realizes, like, oh my gosh, is this how the Goodwin family made our fortune? Is by the letter of marque, which allows you to steal and pillage anything from anyone in the name of the king, which apparently is a legit thing.
Wow.
I started following the showrunner. Her name is Alexandra Clark. She goes by Allie. And she was putting some stuff up about this episode before it premiered, and she reposted I don't know if it's just a friend or if he's actually a makeup artist on the way home, but he is a makeup artist, and apparently he is in the genealogy of like the Landry is a real family, founding family of New Brunswick.
Whoa.
This is like a real
cool.
family story, which is
That's so
crazy.
cool.
So that was a glimmer. I should put that in as a glimmer. But so the letter of marque thing is a real thing.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Anyway, I don't know anything more about that, but the fact that Elliot was able to find Thomas Coyle in the manifest, and this is how Kat figures all that out. But what makes me really upset that is surprising to me is Kat hasn't told anyone about how close she is with Susanna. For how many times is she traveling and hasn't told Elliot or Alice about Thomas Coyle? Like, she got shot. Wouldn't his name have come up? Like,
true.
That was surprising / almost dead ends. Anyway, and my last little ones are, I was really surprised that Alice was the one to initiate flirting with Noah LeBlanc this time. Excuse me. Did that surprise you? Like,
it didn't surprise me. I feel like I've seen this coming.
No, but I wanted him to pursue her.
I feel like him going to the coffee shop every day was him pursuing her.
Oh, that makes sense. And then he wants her to make the move. Okay. He works for his grandfather, Wally's food truck. Wally is famous. What did I miss? Or he's just like a fixture of the town?
I don't know if they really go into that.
They don't. Wally's chip truck was in the first, because he was one of the characters that said like they wanted the carnival back or the fall festival.
Right.
But if he's sorry, this is bleeding over into dead ends again. I didn't realize how much of my surprising detours is dead ends because I think because I was surprised at how many dead ends I have because I don't normally. It's discombobulating. I didn't realize. If Wally is famous, how would Alice not know that Noah is Wally's grandson if he was the most popular kid in school? These aren't lining up, people. And then when she meets Victor, he makes really uncomfortable suggestions about Alice and Elliot. Like, that was really cringy.
That was, yeah. And that's why I'm like, there has to be something, his state of mind has to be altered. I don't know. It was just, I didn't like that. I was watching with my husband because he will not admit, but he really is invested in this show. And he was the one that said he does not like how much Elliot and Kat fight. He's like, why are they always fighting? And you know what? I tend to agree. Like, we're
Yes.
always getting to a good place and then it sours. And I get that's the whole up and down, but it's almost becoming predictable now where oh, something good is happening, something bad
Yeah.
is going to happen. I think we just need to mix it up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to get to like, okay, is this toxic now? Like, you
Yes.
guys just can't do this. And so I think because I didn't realize most of my surprising detours was really dead ends, but I was like, my surprising detours is so long. I'm gonna put the Omo Nar DAR that's typically in the surprising detours or the don't go chasing waterfalls for our usual Hallmark reviews. Um, the Omo Nar DAR is the narcissistic radar and dead ends kind of coincide for me because of the fact that Elliot and Kat's relationship is so hot, cold, like
Yeah.
so quickly
Yes.
to the point where it's like, ooh, I think you guys need a break
Space.
from one
Yeah.
another. Like, or maybe you already had it and it's not working and you're not good for one another because,
Yeah.
um, like, I mean, honestly, Kat and Elliot's relationship, Rita and Sam's relationship, and
Ugh.
even Thomas, Coyle, and Kat have Omo Nardar vibes. And the
Mm,
reason I'm saying this is because that hot, cold, for someone who's in a relationship with a narcissistic, especially a covert narcissistic sociopath, which in recent months in our community we've seen a lot of, and that when there's exposures that come out about religious leaders, it's typically what you're
mhm.
looking at, where it's like everyone's seeing this, not everyone, but a lot of people, a large majority is seeing this charming person,
Yeah.
but there's only, I can never remember, is Dr. Jekyll or Hyde which one's the bad one? I can never remember. I think it's
I
Dr.
think it's
Jekyll's the bad.
yeah, I think it's Jekyll.
Um, and so anyways, that like good, bad, when you're in a relationship with someone like that, your brain is literally secreting hormones and it causes an
Mm,
addiction, which is where a trauma bond forms. It's
wow.
the crazy making symptoms that actually linger far beyond there's no contact in a real relationship. There can even be
Huh.
physical symptoms. Like this is a very real thing. And for those of you that are like, come on, Nini, you're Thomas, Sam, Elliot, like, is it like finding, a devil under every rock? Like,
Mm,
listen, Dr. Romney, who's an expert, there's no like official study on how common narcissism is, but she's like, if she had to say a statistic, she would say it's
yeah.
1 in 6 or
Ooh,
7. That's like a really high percentage rate. Like,
yeah.
out of every 6 or 7 people, there's a narcissist in there. And I would say
He,
that would be accurate in my experience.
mm-hmm.
But boundaries. And the reason is because, like, listen, Rita, the first time we see Sam Bishop in this episode, Rita is commenting on how Sam Bishop is a player making his rounds. Then we see Rita on a date with Sam when Dell is having an alone date at the point with a book and
Mm,
pie, and she leaves because it's like clearly awkward. And then you
yeah.
end with the fact that Dell's nearly nude scene is with Sam Bishop. I was so angry. Like, listen,
Mm,
it could have been a freeing moment for her, but at the same time, it could have been low key, coercive suggestion where
mm,
she looks back and feels
like
violated.
icky,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what happens here, but it's very, like, in real life, this is how this kind of
Yes.
stuff plays out.
So true.
It was incredibly disturbing the way that she was disturbed by his behavior and then in a low point where she's tired is vulnerable with him was
Yeah.
disgusting and incredibly triggering for me.
Mm.
Um and it's good TV, but I'm super disturbed by the fact that Thomas, Coyle, and Kat have more chemistry than Elliot and Kat.
This is a hot take that I think we will probably disagree about, but I'm kind of digging the Thomas Coyle storyline. I think I'm just
I
so tired of Elliot and like the up and down that I'm like, yeah, let's throw someone else in the mix here. And it would
yeah.
be someone that shot her. Like, I think maybe the shooting was a red herring. Maybe he was trying to scare her. Like, I think what's gonna come out. Well, this is getting into predictions, so maybe we should wait for that
Okay.
section.
Okay. Well, I mean, besides, there were quite a few dead ends now that I'm thinking about it. How is Kat the first one to dig up Jacob's shoes after all those years in harvest?
Oh, I know. They were clearly not even dug that deep into the ground.
I was like,
The
what
fact
is
that
happening?
it was
It's
on
not
the
like a huge
surface
hole. Yeah.
and it hadn't deteriorated over 20 years.
Yeah. It's like McDonald's food.
Like, we
Um,
know that fabric, okay, rubber, the shoes I understand, but like the clothing would have deteriorated for the most part within 20
yeah.
years. Not all of it, but it was in pretty decent shape.
And they're all harvesting in a field. This
Yeah.
is the 1800s. We have no technology. How, when they're in the fields, does Susanna immediately know, Cat, Jacob's home? Like, what? Like, uh, uh, I don't understand what's happening. I think we need to move on to the way we see it, because this is where we talk about observations and theories, because everyone's observations are different, which makes our theories different. Who do you think buried the shoes, Lala?
Oh, probably like Elijah. Like, probably when they got him and they realized he wasn't from here, they didn't want anyone to know, so they hid all the evidence.
I was thinking that, but my kids are like, no, it was Jacob. He did it himself.
That's
I was like, well,
interesting.
that's interesting. Okay.
I just don't
S-
know. My only opinion is that a child, how old was he? Like
8.
8, might not have the foresight to be like, "Oh, I'm a stranger in this land."
True.
That's my only thinking. So,
It'll be
yeah.
interesting. It'll be interesting.
Hmm.
So I think that Thomas Coyle, because when Kat thought she saw the 1800s Thomas Coyle at the 2024 Founders Day Festival, I think he's a time traveler.
Mm.
I think because he's got too much swagger. Their interaction in the beginning was not an 1800s interaction. I mean, granted, she knows that he's a thief and not a good guy, and he doesn't deny it, which is like adds to the Omo Nar DAR, right?
Yes.
But I feel like he's a time traveler. He knows she's a time traveler, and he was totally waiting for her to come out of the pond in this episode at the end, where he runs into her before Elijah comes home. Um, because he tells her it's the first day of the harvest. And why? This was part of Dead Ends. Why does Kat keep volunteering information? Dell, Kat, like they're being too vulnerable with inappropriate people, and it's driving me crazy.
Right.
Right? So tell me about what you were thinking. Like,
For my predictions.
yeah.
Okay. So, we've said this probably every episode,
Okay.
but now with this kind of budding and relational tension between Kat and Mr. Coyle.
Yeah.
I was thinking more people, so we've said more, we think more people are time traveling, right?
Uh-huh.
We think that like people are time traveling. And
Yes.
what if Mr.
Mhm.
Coyle was there at the pond and like he's watching it?
Yeah.
And that
That's what I think.
someone who could be the White Witch or someone else
Mhm.
kind of comes up, and he thought that that was Kat, or he thought Kat was that evil
The
person or
who he
bad
was waiting
person,
for.
and that's why he shot her. And they didn't realize she was just like an innocent bystander.
I almost wonder if Thomas and Susanna are in on, remember, like I have the
Yes.
keepers of the pond theory that in each era there's someone who's keepers of the pond. Um, Not that they have no control, but that they've been watching and they know this storyline of who's been time traveling through the pond. Because I just really hope, I really, really hope that the writers just want us to think that Thomas Coyle is the one who painted Cat. They threw in that obvious, it's not really an Easter egg because it was very obvious. I really want you to switch it up on me. I don't want it to end up being Thomas who painted her because that's not the way we do it at the way home. I need an unexpected surprise, right?
Yeah.
So that's why my theory is that Thomas Coyle is from 2024 or is from the 2000s, 2020s. I don't care. He's a modern day guy. He has modern day guy swagger. Um, and perhaps that is how my Catherine ended up at the Linkermore,
Mm,
possibly having something to do with him.
yes.
And has Susanna tried to time travel before?
Um, it doesn't feel like it only because she was very confused about how Kat was dressed and just like Kat
That's true.
overall.
Yeah.
It felt like she was pretty naive. So I definitely feel like Thomas Coyle, you're right. He's got that swagger. It's a good word.
That was just such a, like, in the 1800s, for a man to be naked in a pond and for a woman to find him, I guess this is sort of dead ends also, like, uh, it just, she would have had her back to him the whole time. Why is she facing him and like talk, like, I know she
I
has
have
to,
no
it's part of the
idea.
character development, like she's showing him that she's not afraid, but like it just was so not appropriate to the times, or I don't know. It just felt a little misplaced to me. And yeah, but I feel like after Susanna found out that Kat is a time travel, has she tried to time travel? Will she try to time travel with Jacob? Like, I don't know. And do we think that the agreement, so in episode 2, Thomas and Susanna were, hovering over a like septic cat who was going in and out of consciousness. And you hear Thomas and Susanna talking about, your father and I have a deal. Neither of us have a choice, so you'll do as I say. Is that just about Jacob, like him getting Jacob back, you using his name? Or is there something else that we don't know
Hmm.
about? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like based on the pattern, there's probably something else we don't know about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I hope so, because it'll be really disappointing. I think what happened was my expectations for this episode were so high, and I followed Sadie on social media and she was like, everything changes after this episode. But I think what she means is episode 6 is epic. I'm trying to temper my expectations because 4 and 5 were like, "Meh." But I feel like if we're following the cadence of season 1, it was the same. So I have high hopes that 6 through 10 are knock it out of the ballpark. It is
Yeah.
confirmed that Victor is not a cholo this episode.
Yeah.
But I'm so curious when Elliot talks about, and we kind of talked about this a little bit already. Everyone's talking about how Founders Day is so traumatic for Elliot, but the embarrassing speech isn't like uber traumatic. So what are they talking about?
I think they're talking about that.
That's
I
it
think
though? It's
that's,
got to be
yeah.
something else.
That's why I'm like, his dad must be drunk and it must be something that it's hidden and then everyone sees. Which I think why his speech was very powerful because he was basically saying like he's not ashamed of his family's name. It may not be as, as big as like the Landrys or the Goodwins, but they were the history keepers, like they were the storytellers of the past. And so almost like taking back that narrative that his dad had of like we were as good as all of you, and Elliot's kind of flipping the story around with a different perspective, but I think that's what they're alluding to.
I think it's interesting though, because, in a previous episode, Susanna's telling Kat, well, the winners are the ones who write history, but the Augustines aren't the winners. So how have they altered the history then? Or how did the Goodwins control how the Augustines
Well, and even we
record
have that
history?
line where Susanna says like that, basically saying like history, it might not always be recorded in the way that it happened.
Exactly. There's so much.
There's
So
so
much.
much. Why won't they release all the episodes at once?
I know. Well, I did that, I think, with season 1. I waited because I was like, I can't do this anymore. I waited so I could binge. Um, so here's one thing. I don't know if you heard this, but this has been talked about a lot on the interwebs. And I caught it. I wasn't sure if anyone else would, but the Way Home people, they are serious. Did you know there's a Reddit thread that's like everything that could be screenshotable? Somebody went through and screenshotted all the things and literally typed up clearly what you can read off of screenshots is in like one post.
I believe
And it's all
that.
organized. There's family trees, there's all kinds of things. Okay, when Colton was sitting with Dell, and it's interesting because they even age Colton as if he has aged with Dell in some of her when it's not a flashback. You
Mm.
noticed he's more
Yes.
aged? Okay. So that's why it's like, what is happening? Um, but he says to Dell, you brought our daughter home. You did that. But he says, our daughter and her
Her
granddaughter.
granddaughter.
He
That's why
says her. Did you
that
catch that too?
yes, that's why I'm like, is he there or is he not?
And is it Casey? Is Casey Alice's daughter from the future?
Casey Alice's daughter from the future? What?
Yes. Yes, Casey is time traveling and somehow it's Alice's daughter. Did I not say this in a previous episode? Because I was thinking that. I was like, I don't
No.
know if anybody else is thinking that. But
I don't know because Casey seems like kind of like she has a crush on Alice.
that's why people are like, it's a crush, but it could be endearing looking at like, that's my mother.
I
Like
don't
how
know.
Alice,
I don't
Teen
know if I see
Alice
that
looks at
one.
Cat.
Hmm.
I don't know, but it is out there on the interwebs.
I just feel
Um,
like someone from the past. Well, she's from the future. I don't know. Okay. Well, we'll think about. We'll keep that like in mind and see if that's what unfolds.
listen, because there is this woman who has comfycozytv.com. You're welcome for the free publicity, Stephanie Wilson. She also has like a Facebook group called Hallmark Fans Movies and Christmas Movies Discussion. I'm in so many different, they're all a little bit altered in their names. It's got like over almost 100,000 members in it, I think. But
Mm.
she's the one that I got that history fact from. She's a licensed attorney with a master's in science and tech journalism and has been in
Whoa.
entertainment journalism for more than a decade. I was like, what am I doing? Like,
Wow.
I am not qualified. Um, she thinks Casey is Alice's child from the future. And also, all throughout her blog post, she's like, she just really wants someone to discuss time travel with Dell. Like, ever since season 1, every time she's like, why won't
That's
someone just
funny.
talk about it with Dell? And I'm like, because I think they already have. And we have Girls Gone Hallmark. Shout out. Thanks for the hashtag Tomcat. There's a lot of people that are
I love that.
hashtagging Tomcat now.
Mm.
Because people really want to see Tom's Quail and Cat together. But listen, I took the Instagram stories quiz from like the official The Way Home Hallmark channel,
Hmm.
and they spelled coil Coil.
Oh, not
Hallmark, are you
Coyle.
messing with me? Like, is coil not Coyle, the coil on Alice's guitar that is Colton's guitar? Or somebody said, is Coil a Canadian store of some kind?
No. Mm-mm.
So, Hallmark, stop messing with us. Was that a typo? Who did that? Fess up. Like, that has better be a typo. Okay, and this whole thing about Colton, whether he's like showing up for real or not, here's what we do know, spoiler alert, because Spencer, who plays adult Jacob that we saw for like a few seconds, he did this interview and he says that he doesn't ever film with Jefferson, who plays Colton. So they're not ever going to show up in a scene together.
It's a bummer.
I know. Which Dan from Deck the Hallmark doesn't want Colton to come back, but I did. I wanted to see Colton and Jacob together, but apparently it's not adult Jacob. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But
Yeah.
anyways, do you have anything else?
No, but now I'm like invested in like this Thomas Coyle. No, online on IMDb, it's spelled his cast name is Thomas Coyle, Coyle.
Hallmark, who did it? Who's your social media manager?
Oh gosh, they
It's
have us in a
just
chokehold.
I know. We will link, as always, the previews for the next episode below. That kind of has to continue. The way we see it. Might need to include previews at the end if you don't want spoilers. Don't listen to this part. Did you see it? Did I send it to you?
No. And in Canada, like when we finish watching the episode, even live, like they don't give us what's happening next.
Oh, so you didn't even see. So in the
No.
preview that happens, which they call it a preview, there's every week there's a preview and a sneak peek, and I'll link it below in the show notes. So in the preview that happens right after the episode, right before Gilmore Girls, or not Gilmore Girls, see, listen, Golden Girls. Kat, Susanna, and Thomas Coyle, it basically looks like they're conspiring together to get Jacob out of prison
Gotcha.
themselves. Then there's what's called a sneak peek, and it's a little bit longer than the preview. And in the sneak peek is Dell getting a phone call that says something about more information about Jacob that police have found. And I can't tell if they just have more information, like they found some belongings of Jacob, or if they actually found a body. And if it's a
Oh
body,
no.
is it an adult body or a child's body? And is this happening because Kat dug up his clothes and shoes? Like,
Oh.
what is happening? And then they always have this little like a reel in social media that's not like in
Okay.
YouTube or anywhere else. And in this week's, it was just Alice telling Elliot, because Alice was there when Dell gets a call from the police. So Alice tells Elliot that Dell has more information from the police about Jacob. And it's just Elliot saying, "What about Jacob?" Anyway, I can't even. Listen, The Way Home, people. Alexandra Clark, Ellie. I know it's already done. But if episode 6 doesn't have what happens at Lingermore Estates, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I feel like my ratings might go down. Don't disappoint me, please. Dara at Dear Hallmark is another podcast, which she's hilarious. I love her. She's a true Hallmark movie lover, and if you guys haven't been following her podcast, Nini used to be a Hallmark movie hater. But I had to start watching it because I needed more calm things for my nervous system. So she loves The Way Home, but she's like, this isn't true Hallmark. So she's like, it's like too much for her. Like she has to watch a Hallmark movie afterwards.
That's funny.
So if you need recommendations in Loveuary, it was a Jane Austen month.
Yes, I did see that.
And I was so happy to find out, and this was because of Dara at Dear Hallmark. She did an interview with Benjamin Ayers. What happened, it wasn't like Hallmark set out and was like, hey, let's do a month on Jane Austen. They got pitched 4 movies on Jane Austen. So they decided to
Wow.
make a month on it. I was like,
Nice.
oh, that's a brilliant way of doing that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you my favorite 2. The rest, you don't give it time of day. I love all the actors and writers, but these are my favorite ones. An American in Austin is about a girl who wakes up, a modern day girl who wakes up in Pride and Prejudice times. Like she's literally stuck in the Pride and Prejudice story. So it's kind of like time travel-ish because she knows what happens. It's kind of hilarious. We've determined that we like time traveling in Hallmark shows and movies.
Yes.
But it is so comedic and adorbs. I loved it. An American in Austin. I thought that was a brilliant title also. And drum roll, please. The mahogany presentation of Sense and Sensibility breaks all kinds of ceilings for Nini because I typically don't like mahogany Hallmark. That's like the BET of Hallmark. But get this. Do you know what Sense and Sensibility was about?
Well, Like I know the original Sense and Sensibility.
Yes, this is the thing. Because typically when Hallmark movies have a title, it's like, oh, get ready, has nothing
To
it
do
like
with
is
the
a Sense and
original, yeah.
Sensibility adjacent or mention Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah.
No, this movie was actually Sense and
Sense and
Sensibility. They
Sensibility.
stayed true to the
Oh,
storyline. They made it in an hour 42 minutes. I don't know how, so obviously there's a lot they had to cut out.
sure.
But it was great accents, beautiful costumes, and not only that, but I think what made it for me was that the orchestra, or not the orchestra, the strings quartet, like for one of the dances, you know, those old school when they go to a ball,
Yeah.
they were playing Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
Oh, but you know what? They're just ripping off
Bridgerton.
Bridgerton.
I know, that's why they did that. And it was kind of like, whoa, wait, what's happening? Where am I? But it was a glimmer for me.
Mm.
Anyways, if you guys need something to watch now, that's what I would recommend. They're still replaying it. And then March, I don't know if this is one we're going to pick up with reviewing. Are we going to review Switching Gears with Tyler Hines? The preview is out.
Ooh.
Here's your Hallmark news. For those of you that are Hallmark fans, you already know this, but I'm going to end with this. Sorry, I'm going on and on because I'm really proud, and I'm going to say it again probably at the beginning of the next episode. Switching Gears is the first ever movie that is directed by the first ever graduate of Make Her Mark, which is a program that was created by Ashley Williams. Shout out to Ashley Williams, who was Victoria from How I Met Your Mother. Whoop, whoop. Loved that show. I have some core memories with that show. She made this program at Hallmark to see more female directors. So even though Hallmark is all these love stories, they are still mostly female directors. So Crystal Lowe, which she's got some Chinese heritage, so AAPI representation here, was the first ever grad of Make Her Mark. So it's directed by Crystal Lowe. And I feel like if you see the previews, shout out if you see it too, the female lead has like Rosie the Riveter vibes in her costume's not the right wardrobe.
Wow.
So I feel like there's so much in this, there's so much meaning for this movie.
Right.
It's not just a Heine movie. It's AAPI, it's Make Her Mark, female director. There's just so much meaning to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a restoring cars competition.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. So anyways, we're going to leave it at that.
Okay, well, thanks for breaking script with us. Please share this episode on your socials and tag at the Breaking Script Podcast. Follow and hit the notification bell button so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't yet, please rate and review an Apple Podcast so we can spread more Hallmark glimmers to the world. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Jayo.